Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Joan Rhee. I am Dean for Diversity and Community Partnership at Harvard Medical School, and I want to welcome you to the 8th Annual Harvard-affiliated Residency Program Showcase. The mission of our office, the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, otherwise known as DICP, is to advance diversity, inclusion in health, biomedical, behavioral, and STEM fields that builds individual and institutional capacity to achieve excellence, foster innovation, and ensure equity in health locally, nationally, and globally. This program is part of the DICP Visiting Clerkship Program, VCP. For 30 years, the VCP has been a model of offering outstanding medical students, particularly those from groups underrepresented in medicine, an opportunity to participate in externships at Harvard Medical School and its affiliated hospitals. Since its inception, 1,620 students have participated in the VCP program. VCP, like other clerkship programs across the country, has been impacted by COVID-19. We recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty for the upcoming application cycle for residency, and many students have expressed concerns about what the future may hold. It's with this in mind that we've hosted a series of webinars to bring faculty and trainees of Harvard Medical School residency programs and medical students together to share ideas, provide support, and address questions on transitioning to the next stage of medical training. Since April, VCP has hosted webinars featuring over 30 Harvard-affiliated residency programs. These webinars provided an opportunity to discuss the application process, address questions from students regarding away rotations, as well as other concerns that students may have. The goal of today's event is to provide fourth-year medical students from underrepresented groups an opportunity to meet and network with Harvard-affiliated residency program training directors, attending physicians, fellows, and residents. And it's our hope that all of you participating students will learn more about the residency programs that are offered here at our Harvard-affiliated hospitals through this interactive and informal setting. I sincerely thank the co-sponsors of the event and those individuals from HMS hospitals and residency programs who volunteered their time to meet the students and to offer their advice. So a special thanks to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center Office of Multicultural Affairs, Boston Children's Hospital Office of Health Equity and Inclusion, Brigham and Women's Hospital Center for Diversity and Inclusion, Cambridge Health Alliance Department of Internal Medicine, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Massachusetts Eye and Ear, Massachusetts General Hospital Center for Diversity and Inclusion, McLean Hospital Office of the Chief Academic Officer, Mount Auburn Hospital Department of Internal Medicine, and Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital. I do have a few housekeeping notes as we begin today's session. Your chat and microphones have been disabled, but you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens to post questions to panelists and event staff. This webinar portion of the showcase is being recorded and will be posted on our DICP website. The exhibit and discussion hours, however, will not be recorded. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Alden Landry, who is going to be the moderator for today's showcase. Dr. Landry is an emergency medicine physician at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and assistant dean on the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, and associate director and advisor for the Castle Society at Harvard Medical School. And now I turn this over to Dr. Alden Landry.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, for that warm introduction, and thank you for kicking off our program today. Good morning to all, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual session for our 8th Annual Harvard-affiliated Residency Showcase. We're excited to have you all here, and even though we're virtual due to COVID-19, we still think the program we have planned for you today is going to be beneficial to the students that are joining us. As Dr. Reed may have mentioned, we have over 500 students participating from all across the country, and you represent over 150 US and Canadian medical schools across the 45 states, provinces, and territories. We will try and cover a broad range of subjects today in our panels, in our exhibit, and through our discussions, but we also recognize that we may not be able to get to all the information that you're looking for during these sessions. As Dr. Reed mentioned, the Visiting Clerkship Program webinars have a ton of information that we've done over the past few months. And if you missed any of those webinars, be sure to go back and look at those for more clarity. And I encourage you to take a look at those recordings. They're all available on our Visiting Clerkship Program website. For today's program, as a brief overview, we will begin by hearing from a few leaders of the Harvard-affiliated hospitals. Following their welcomes, we're going to have 2 question and answer panels, one with current residents, followed by another with program directors. And then around noon Eastern time, we will break into the exhibit session of the program. And then at 1 p.m., we're going to come back into some breakout rooms to really focus in on specialty-specific chats. If you have questions during the day, if you have any concerns, be sure to drop that in the Q&A. We will be monitoring that. Be sure, as Dr. Reed mentioned, to take advantage of the Q&A as our moderators for the panels will be looking over and trying to answer questions and bringing those conversations, those questions into the discussion that we're having. And if you have any other concerns, be sure to just reach out to us via email or through the Q&A section of Zoom. Now that we've gotten that out the way, I want to get started right with our program, and I want to open up with some welcome remarks from the diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders from several of our Harvard-affiliated hospitals. Today, you're going to hear from Dr. Galen Henderson, who's the Director of Neurocritical Care and Neuroscience Intensive Care Unit, and he's also an Assistant Professor of Neurology at Harvard Medical School. You're also going to hear from Dr. Mary Lou Jean-Baptiste, who is the Director of Minority Affairs and Medical Director for Healthcare for the Homeless at Cambridge Health Alliance. She's also an Assistant Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School. You'll hear from Dr. Danielle Ovechky, who is the Inclusion Officer for the Department of Medicine at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and an Assistant Professor in Medicine. You'll hear from Dr. Valerie Ward, who is the Medical Director for the Office of Health Equity Inclusion and the co-director of Equity, Inclusion, Diversity Council, and she's a pediatric radiologist at Boston Children's Hospital. And then last but not least, you'll hear from Dr. Joseph Betancourt, who's the Senior Vice President, Equity and Community Health at Massachusetts General Hospital and Associate Professor of Medicine here at Harvard Medical School. And I believe up first, we're going to have Dr. Betancourt to introduce MGH. Dr. Betancourt, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Alden. It's such a pleasure to be here with my friends and colleagues, and I want to welcome you all on behalf of Massachusetts General Hospital, our Mass General Hospital Equity and Community Health Team, our Mass General Hospital Center for Diversity and Inclusion, our Residence Fellows Committee, and our 21 affiliated residency programs. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I'm thankful again to have this opportunity to welcome you on behalf of all the Harvard affiliated programs, and certainly excited to tell you a bit about Mass General Hospital. I'll tell you a bit about who I am, what I do, and then I'm going to tell you a bit about our program. So I've been at Mass General Hospital for 20 years now. I'm a primary care doctor. I was Vice President for Equity and Inclusion a couple years back, now Senior Vice President for Equity and Community Health, where I oversee our diversity, equity, inclusion, and community health activities. Prior to that, I led our Disparity Solutions Center, where we, working with Alden and others, have had the opportunity to work with healthcare systems across the country to better identify and address racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare. Mass General Hospital is an amazing place to train, certainly, as are all the MGH and HMS, shall I say, affiliated programs. I think we are all extremely committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and certainly we at Mass General, with our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, which has been in place now for a bit over 20 years, a new major effort on the heels of the events of last summer, Mass General Brigham's United Against Racism effort and the Mass General Hospital Structural Equity 10-point plan, provide a real home for anyone who's interested in advancing their career in any particular clinical field, but certainly people like me who have passion about equity, social justice, disparities in care, inclusion, and community health. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, grew up in a bilingual, bicultural home. I often tell people I don't have to go to work, I get to go to work. I have the privilege of working at an institution that allows a person like me to grow and to really do work that they are passionate about. And that is the environment that we are striving to create for you, an environment that allows you to grow and expand your horizons in whatever field it may be. We aim to provide a supportive environment. We have our most diverse intern class that's entered this past year, about 26 percent. And today you'll get a chance to meet Dr. Jocelyn Carter, who really works hand in hand with you, individuals, I think from MGH, over 25 individuals, including from our Residents and Fellows Committee. So I welcome you. I'm thankful and humbled to be here with my friends again and colleagues. And I hope you get all your questions answered. I hope you consider all of us and certainly Mass General Hospital. And I wish you all the best today. Thank you, Alden.
Thank you, Dr. Betancourt, for joining us and for your introduction. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Henderson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Galen Henderson, the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for faculty, trainees, and students at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. I'm also a neurologist and director of neurocritical care. I have been at the Brigham for more than 20 years, but let me start from the beginning. I'm originally from Mississippi. I went to an HBCU, Tougaloo College in Jackson, Mississippi. From there to Brown University. From Brown University, I trained at the Brigham, and I stayed at the Brigham for my fellowship in stroke and neurocritical care. And, you know, this was one of the places that I never thought I would have an opportunity to stay, to train and to stay, but I was shocked and surprised at the community that I saw there, that I felt there. And I made these lifelong connections. And coming from Mississippi, I never thought that this was the kind of place that would identify, or that I could identify with, or I could see myself there. But it has truly been an amazing thing. Boston is a great place to live and to train. My colleagues have said that there's a tremendous amount of activity in the DEI experience there with social justice issues. This is the perfect time, I think, to train in and stay in Boston. I want to say a little bit about our Centers for Diversity and Inclusion. Our mission is to create a diverse and inclusive environment where people can thrive and have a community of friends and support. These friends are expected to be lifelong friends, and you know, those are things that are rare, but this is the kind of place that will mold people to do those types of things over the lifetime. We focus on 3 areas with senior leadership, with our collaborations across the Mass General Brigham and Harvard system, the recruitment and retention of diverse faculty, trainees, and students. We want to have a welcoming and engaging environment. And we also provide professional development and career support for all of our bodies, from our medical students, residents, faculty, whether they are just starting out in their careers or if they've been there for even 30 years or longer. We're there to support them. I want to welcome everyone to the Harvard Medical School community and to encourage them to continue to ask questions. And we're here to listen, to help support you as you navigate through this residency review process. You know, this past year at the Brigham, I believe 27% of our incoming class was underrepresented minorities. And so there's a large body of us here. And as I said before, this was a place that I didn't see myself, but this is the place to train. This is an exciting place. And hopefully you'll join us in the near future. And you'll see something today that will excite you regarding our training programs here at Harvard Medical School. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you later.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson, for that introduction. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Jean-Baptiste.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. And I am the medical director for Cambridge Healthcare for the Homeless. And I'm also the director for Minority Affairs. As I'm going to tell you about Cambridge Health Alliance, I have been practicing there for the past 30 years. Cambridge really Alliance is a merger of 3 hospitals. And it's a community hospital with strong academic support. And the trainees have opportunity to work in different fields. Besides getting their medical training, they have opportunity to be working in health advocacy, at the state level, and also to push the hospital to be more diverse. And I am proud to say that this year we have now a DEI, and so our office is getting bigger. And we have 3 training programs. One, it's the internal medicine. There is a psychiatrist program, and then the family program. So I'm going to tell you more about the internal medicine because this is where I work. And I may take myself as an example to tell you the availability that we can offer to trainees. So I was born in Haiti, and as you can tell, I have an accent. And I trained at CHA and remain in staff there. So, and my population is mostly Haitian newly arrived. But I have to tell you that Cambridge is the home of multiple disenfranchised communities, such as the homeless, addiction, and also newly arrived immigrants. So as a primary care doctor, I saw it was not enough to be seeing the patient one-to-one. It was so important to be doing advocacy and working with the community and to be able to integrate their wishes and their need with the medical system. So that's how we started to have wellness group, medical wellness group program, and we had trainees, medical students from Harvard, and top students working on this project. And from there, and because it's an itinerary process, then patient asked to have more of it. So we end up having more classes, and we end up having a cooking demonstration classes. And I have to tell you, those groups are not only for Haitian, other ethnic groups are doing the same at CHA. And from there came the need with a broader population, because as you know, immigrants may not be broken to the system, so they need training. So as an outside, so we do outreach to churches, we have volunteer services working, and we do outreach and education and health empowerment to the radio. I was just finishing a session on the Haitian radio, but I believe we do it in Spanish and Portuguese as well. And lastly, global health. With COVID, as you know, COVID has affected the people, the essential worker the most, and people who live in large quarters. So, and even though it's the case, but we find more hesitancy in that population to reach out for help. So and that's not only here, but it also globally. So last year during the pandemic, we have been working with past students in Haiti, nursing and medical students, on finding out what is the hesitancy toward the vaccination and toward getting care very early for COVID. And that has been happening virtually, but I am happy to tell you that now we have a student who is going to be an observer from Haiti, so she can learn and teach the rest of the students online. So I may have forgotten other stuff, but I am so happy and delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you about what we're doing. And I am also very grateful to the DICP, for which I'm a member, and I will still stop right there. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Jean-Baptiste. Next, we will hear from Dr. Olvechki.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm coming to you from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, really physically located today because I'm actually on service and rounding, but it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to tell you one quick second about me, and I just will inform your choice. Really, being a doctor was just, I never thought I was going to be a doctor. I'm the first doctor in my family, and it's been the privilege of a lifetime to be a physician. I'm so grateful that medicine found me for so many reasons. I just love love what I do every day, and it's just an honor and a privilege. And just so you know, I came to this country, my parents came to this country with nothing but a suitcase. I was almost homeless if my aunt didn't take me in. So I really want to let you know that medicine is for, I really feel it's for everyone. And the joy that I have that medicine found me, it's a gratitude that I'll never lose. So remember when I was at your stage thinking, there's no way I can possibly be a doctor. There's no way this could be for me. And I just want to let you know that, if you have that calling in your heart, you've got to pursue the passion, pursue it. So about Beth Israel, I'm actually the interim physician director for Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And in this role, it's been such a tremendous privilege to really shape the institutions that we love. Beth Israel was founded by the merger of two hospitals, the Deaconess and also Beth Israel. And both of those hospitals for more than a century have been committed to providing care for those who were discriminated against and the poor. And why I love coming to work every single day here is because we do that to this very day. Our patients are 40% non-white, which is pretty huge because we're in a very white state, Massachusetts, and we're the tertiary referral center for a huge network. So because we have connections to our community that are more than half a century old, we really are able to care for our underserved patients while still being a top-notch academic medical center. And I love Beth Israel because, again, I can just tell you, I'm on the cardiac surgery floor, which is our fabulous floor, and our patients, there are no private floors. So our homeless patients, our patients of color, they all get to be neck and neck with the CEO and the executive. We really do practice equity every single day. We keep our homeless patients a few days to make sure they get into their first home. We really do bend over backwards to meet each patient where they are and practice that mission of equity that we've been doing for more than a century. Our structure for DEI is actually really quite robust. What we do is we actually get every department involved. I run a committee of about 30 to 40 faculty from all different departments, and they really have been carrying out the work of DEI that we do every single day. We are a 640 bed hospital, but we're actually getting a brand new spanking new building, which is going to be gorgeous, just allowing us to continue providing top-notch care. And as an aside, of course, I asked right away, are we going to keep doing what we've been doing, where homeless people will also get care in that brand new building? And I was reassured by development that we will continue to live this mission of equity every single day. We increased our UIM match rate by 50% last year. And so we're up to 20+% UIMs. And we are committed. We are extremely humble that we are not where we want to be, but we are committed and determined to get there every single day. So with that, I know and then of course we have a robust DEI from our employees as well, which has been amazing. And we believe advocacy starts at home. So one of the great things we're doing now is how do we meet every single employee of color, make sure they're getting vaccinated, making sure no one is getting left behind. And I think that is what I think of as BIDMC. Here we really work every day to make sure no one is getting left behind. Last thing I'll say, when I was in your stage, I felt like I was always like begging, saying, please let me in, please let me be a doctor. But what I want to tell you is medicine needs you. We have so many problems to solve. It's a privilege, it's a joy, but we have real tough problems to solve. We need every diverse thinker. We need everyone on board. And really, medicine needs you. So go get them. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Olveshki. And last, we will hear from Dr. Ward.
Thank you very much. My name is Valerie Ward. I'm the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at Boston Children's Hospital, but also a pediatric radiologist. And I was in your shoes. I should say, everyone sharing their personal stories. I'd like to share, I'm a local from Massachusetts, and I grew up with these hospitals in my backyard. And I've always wanted to be a doctor, but surely felt intimidated by the great, medical institutions on Longwood Avenue and over at Mass General and hearing the big names. But don't let fear or intimidation or thinking that you can't do it. You can. Look at us. We did it. And many of us have trained in these programs. I came to Boston for my internship and residency at the Beth Israel. We just heard about Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and then came over to Brigham Women's Hospital for radiology residency with no intention to do pediatric imaging, and went to Boston Children's and loved pediatric radiology. So you're going to hear about our more than 50 training programs at Boston Children's, whether it's general pediatrics, radiology, neurosurgery, cardiology, orthopedics, and more. You're going to hear about the Boston Combined Residency Program, where our pediatric residents provide care at Boston Children's Main Hospital and also at Boston Medical Center. And there is a dedicated track for physicians who want to learn more about serving underserved communities and what they can do. But don't forget, at our main hospital at Boston Children's, we have a real commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. In 2020, our hospital put out a declaration on EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we stand by it. It's 6 goals with multiple commitments. The commitment that I really embrace the most is that one of goal number 4. If you go to our website, you'll see it, goal 4, creating an inclusive learning and working environment, because that brings us together as a hospital community. And with that, we developed a training, a bystander to upstander training, because we want our students, our trainees, our faculty, our staff, our employees to all call it out. If you see a microaggression, then we call it out. And we have a framework that we teach so that we can go back to working collegially even after something happens in the workplace that does not feel inclusive. We take this very seriously from our senior leadership to all aspects of our hospital. And so I had to tell you about that because our residents have really gotten involved with the work of our Declaration on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Our residents have stepped up. They're doing safety disparities work. They're doing QI research. They're helping fellows and faculty think about innovative ways. There are also leadership opportunities at Children's. We take very seriously the trainee to faculty transition. So if you come to Boston Children's to train, we are going to make a real commitment and outreach to you to try to get you to stay on for your fellowship and as faculty. And we have mentorship and coaching and sponsorship opportunities. And I'm going to wind down by saying today, you're going to meet one of our stellar PGY2 residents, Dr. Rosa Wu, and she's going to talk to you, and Dr. Ted Sektish, our program director. You're going to hear about what it's like to train at Boston Children's. And then you're also going to hear about a new initiative. Our hospital is taking equity and inclusion very seriously. And in October, we're launching a new institute called the Sandra L. Fenwick Institute for Pediatric Health Equity and Inclusion. And our CEO and president, Dr. Kevin Churchwell, is supporting this major initiative at Children's. So more to come, and please know that we're here to answer questions even after today. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Ward and all of the leaders from the various institutions for being here, committed to this space, working with us as a part of the Visiting Clerkship Program, the Harvard Affiliated Residency Showcase, and the DICP in general. It's truly great to see so many amazing leaders joining us this early on a Saturday morning to be here in this space and to welcome students from across the country. I think your leadership is an example of what our hospitals have to offer when it comes to support for diverse trainees. And I think that, those who are watching this webinar will be encouraged to know that that amazing people like you are going to be there to support them. So thank you all for your warm introductions. And we look forward to your participation in the rest of the program as the day goes forward. I want to pivot now to another group that I'm really grateful to be, that they're here, and it's our residents. When we started the program years ago, we had residents involved, but not in the form of a panel. And as the program has evolved, we recognize the importance of hearing the voice of the trainees here, because the students wanted to hear from those who are actually in the trenches during their residencies and experiencing this aspect of their training. And we have an amazing group of residents that are joining us. And I just want to say thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. Some are navigating around patient care, moving between rounds to be here. And it's just, it's great to see that there's such commitment to this space. And I think, again, it's an example of how much our residents are committed to this space just as much as the leadership within the hospitals. So to get things moving, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tolulope Roshanwu. She will be moderating the panel. Tolu is a current second-year resident in the Integrated Research Pathway at Boston Children's Combined Residency Program with Boston Medical Center. And also Tolu is an alum of the Visiting Clerkship Program from 2019. Thank you, Tolu, for being here today, and I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Landry. And it's just honestly, it's my joy to be here with all of you. I really loved participating in this program, and I'm just excited to kick off this panel. So, my name is long and it has a lot of vowels in it, and so do a lot of people's names here today. And so out of respect for them, I'm going to just say their first name and allow them to introduce themselves to you to get things started. So I'll start off with Richard. Do you mind introducing yourself and saying just a quick blurb about who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sol. My name is Richard Vidal Medina. I'm from the Dominican Republic. I went to med school there and then moved to United States with a Fulbright scholarship to finish my PhD in neuroscience at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So I was really lucky to match at Massachusetts General Hospital and McLean Hospital Adult Psychiatry Residency Program. And I've been working there as part of the research track and also very involved in some of the diversity initiatives. I'm now part of the Center for Inclusion and Diversity Residency Board, and I'm in charge of the Education and Career Development Office. So really nice to be here sharing with all of you.
Great, thanks, Richard. Next, Brian, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hey everyone, my name is Brian Campos. I'm also an alum of this program. I was in this program in 2019 as well. And I'm originally from New York City. My parents are from Peru. They immigrated here in the 80s. And yeah, I'm a proud Peruvian American. I studied at Harvard, majored in neurobiology, and then I did stem cell research before applying to medical school. I attended Brown before coming here. And I'm a PGY2 now in the Department of General Surgery. So I'm happy to answer any questions, especially if you're considering a surgical specialty.
Awesome, thanks, Brian. Daniela, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Daniela Febres Cordero. I am a PGY3 OBGYN resident at Beth, Israel. A little bit of my background: I was born and raised in Venezuela. Then I moved to Birmingham, Alabama for high school. And then I ended up here in Boston for Tufts undergrad and Tufts Medical School. And now I'm at the BI for OB. I guess a little bit of my interest has always been like serving underserved communities, particularly Spanish speaking communities, given that's my native language, and have always been interested in equity work.
Amazing, thank you. Christine?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm a PGY3 at the Massachusetts General Hospital for Children. I'm a Boston native. I grew up in the neighborhood of Jamaica Plain, and then I left to go to college at Oberlin. I actually studied politics, so I'm sort of a non-traditional medical applicant, and happy to answer any questions about that. I did my postbac program at Bryn Mawr and then made my way back to Massachusetts, where I graduated from UMass Medical School. And now I'm a third-year resident. I'm going to be one of the rising chiefs at MGHFC. And I finally settled on doing allergy and immunology. So I've sort of worked my way around, but ultimately fell in love with immunology most.
Great, wonderful. Ramon?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ramon Antonio Rodriguez. I was born and raised in Providence, Rhode Island. My family is from the Dominican Republic, so I'm also a proud Dominican American. I went to undergrad at Brown and took some time off before applying to medical school. I did 2 years doing the NIH ERTA program, doing basic science research. And then I realized that my passion was really in like disparities work. And so I did some pediatric asthma disparities research during my third year off. And then I went to Columbia for medical school, and I found a passion in taking care of older patients. So I applied to internal medicine. I think my interests are in sort of end of life care. So I think I'm going to apply to palliative care for fellowship. and in particular looking at disparities of end-of-life care within the Black and Latinx patient populations. I'm also like really interested in medical education and mentorship. And so if you have any questions about internal medicine, happy to answer.
Fantastic. And then Aki's on his way. He's a PGY3 in the Harvard Combined Orthopedics Residency Program, and they are very busy like all of us. And so he'll jump on when he can, and we will welcome him once he arrives. Oh, is he here? Oh, great. Aki, can you introduce yourself? Maybe he's just connecting. So we'll circle back when he's ready. So I know it's a challenge this year that we are virtual. I remember what it was like to do this amazing showcase in person. I feel it. I wish that we were all together, but we're going to do our best to make it feel like you're right in Boston with us, and want to share about our perspectives about what it's like to be in Boston for training. And so I just wanted to start off with Daniela, and could you just please talk about your experience coming to Boston for training and just elaborate on that for us for a minute?
Yeah, of course. I will say that with the caveat that I have been in Boston for several years prior to coming to training. So I feel like I've had an experience of living in several parts of Boston. I think overall, like what attracted me to Boston as a city in general, aside of really amazing opportunities when it comes to medicine, you have so many centers here. Like if you can think of it, you can find someone that's doing it and can ask for their mentorship. But when it comes to Boston, to me, it just felt like a very manageable city coming from Birmingham, Alabama, which was, it's a city, it's just different city. not the same, it's not as big, no public transit. So I think like Boston overall is just a very, there's always stuff to do. You can find your niche, but it's not overwhelming. And you can definitely find like there's many different communities, really like fun, different neighborhoods. It's not just Boston, but once you cross over to Cambridge, Somerville, Medford, there's just, I think you can find things for anyone and anyone's interest. For me, I really loved music. I had a fine arts background. So for me, it was kind of like the music scene in Boston.
Great, which is phenomenal. And we can talk about that offline at some point, but yes, I love the music scene here too. Ramon, I wanted to ask you about like what it's been like you just living here from a cost perspective. People talk about how Boston's a really expensive place to live. And I wanted to just ask like kind of if you would be willing to share about what that's been like for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of preface this, I did medical school in New York City, which is arguably a more expensive city to live. And that's where like my baseline really is. So in terms of cost of living, I think it's variable depending on which neighborhoods you decide to live in. So for instance, like if you wanted to be more downtown and live in like Fenway or Back Bay, like those neighborhoods that are more center to Boston, the cost of living is probably comparable to New York City, if not like maybe slightly less. So we're talking in terms of rent, like maybe on the upwards of like $1,500, $2,000, maybe more, depending on what kind of apartment you live in. So I live in Jamaica Plain, or JP. It's one of the neighborhoods it's fairly close to Brigham and Women's. And I, like it's been fine for me. I just to disclose, like I pay $1,500 in rent a month. And I think the sort of like resident salary that you get, I haven't, like from my like colleagues and all the other co-residents that I've spoken to, like it is like sufficient to be able to live in Boston. Now, just to put in a plug for this, I also come from a low income background. So, my parents like have never been able to help me in terms of like financing like medical school, residency, anything, related to that. So the Mass General Brigham, which is like the sort of institution that is the umbrella for Brigham and Women's Hospital and Mass General Hospital. They have this initiative for economically disadvantaged residents, which is a stipend. And so if you qualify, you apply, and it's essentially $30,000 that you receive split into 3 years. And obviously taxes deducted. And so that is there to supplement your income as a resident. And so that's been really helpful for me. And I've been able to manage really well with that. And I'm sure like other programs have like similar initiatives in place. But that was one of the reasons why I like chose the residency program that I did, was like economic factors like played a huge role. And I wanted to make sure that I was like well supported in that regard. So cost of living, I would say like close to New York, not quite as high, but it is manageable with the resident salary that we get. And it's also nice to have that additional supplement. I mean, for comparison, like Providence has a much lower cost of living, but I think like living in Boston, there's like more sort of like opportunities, and it's a city that's like pretty lively. So I hope that helps.
That's super helpful. And I appreciate you being candid about your rent, because sometimes it's like really helpful to have just a number. Yeah, I pay $12.40 a month as well. And I've been able to actually save. Like, so you can save money. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not flying around. So we can save a lot of money this year. Boston is expensive, more than like the average city in the US, but it's not impossible to live here without like, you know, a ton of wealth behind you as a resident. So thank you to like speaking towards that. You know, there's also a lot of impressions about Boston require, you know, it's very white, or it's also very, oh wait, did I lose everyone? Very white. It's also very expensive, but also going in hand with that, like racism and like just dealing with that type of bias on a day-to-day basis. And so I think that it's generally like kind of that giant elephant in the room. People are like, yeah, Boston's was really racist. Like, why do I want to come and train here? And so I was hoping, Brian, you could just share with us your experiences about racism in Massachusetts, if you've experienced it, what it's been like, and if you have any kind of just general wisdom to share on that matter.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I've kind of seen Boston change over the past decade. I guess kind of date myself, I'm now in my 30s, and I graduated from Harvard in 2012. So I spent my, you know, late teens, early 20s here, like in the early 2010s. And Boston then was way different from the Boston we see now. And I also spent 4 years at Brown in Providence for med school, where, you know, Rhode Island and Massachusetts kind of go hand in hand. It's New England. So I've been able to actually spend the majority of my 20s, now that I think about it, in New England. And I've seen that transformation over the years, where I feel like New England has become more diverse. Neighborhoods have had growing populations of people of color. Boston, I remember when I was in Cambridge in college, it was like a little bit of an international bubble, but when you stepped outside of that bubble and went into the main city, it was definitely more white. There were a lot of bars that, you know, I wouldn't imagine stepping into. But nowadays, you can go to those bars or can go to those neighborhoods and you wouldn't be looked at funny. I think, you know, Boston has become very diverse for what it was, and coming to Boston again to train here has been eye-opening, because I feel like college students here are living a reality that's much more improved and much more inclusive. And for me as a doctor now, you know, I haven't encountered, well, if any, so far, any racist moments. I did have couple of moments as a med student in Providence, where they didn't want, medical care from people of color. And I've seen that, and it's unfortunate because Providence is actually such a inclusive and diverse town. But, kind of like with Boston and Providence, once you drive outside of those cities, the BLM signs kind of decrease in frequency, and you get into areas where they aren't as diverse. So I think being in the city is great because of the diversity. And I'm definitely glad that Boston has kind of gone in this direction of more inclusivity. And actually last year, coming back to Boston and seeing the BLM protests was fantastic. I would have never thought to see that as a college student like 10 years ago, to be frank. But now, like, Boston's definitely becoming more inclusive, and it's great to see, especially as the city becomes younger as well.
Right. Yeah, I would say that Boston is often a city of outsiders. Like, most people I run into from Boston aren't from Boston. And so I think a lot of that traditional like stereotype about like, oh, like X amount of people living here being super like oppressive and racist, like they're not necessarily the majority anymore. So like, as most people are coming in from other places. So yeah, I really appreciate you just giving us that context. And if anybody else has any burning story, anything to share, please let me know. And we can also kind of go a little bit off script. I want to like create space for that. But in the interest of time, I will like move on to the next section. And if anyone has additional questions they want to talk about, you can type it into the chat, and one of our panelists will be able to answer those questions. And we can circle back at the end of the time if we have, if that allows for us. So I want to transition now to applying to residency. It's almost time to hit that button on ERAS. And so just congratulations to all of you for making it this far. I wanted to just start with Aki, and now you're here. It's so great to see you. If you could just introduce yourself and say just a little bit about who you are, and answer the question about like any kind of recommendations you might have for students as they're putting the final touches on their ERAS application.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Aki Zosike. I'm a fourth year resident at the Ortho Program here. Sorry, I was a little bit late coming in. I'm actually at the hospital today, so we're taking care of some patients before coming into the call. A little bit about me. I'm from California. I grew up in the Bay Area. I've been in Boston for, I guess now, about 8 years. It's crazy how time flies. I was here in college and then left for medical school, still in the Northeast, and then came back now for residency. And, as Brian was alluding to earlier, I think for me, it's different when you're in college because you live in a dorm, and then you now coming back here as an adult. I think I've also noticed certain differences and changes in the city of Boston. To your question, Tolu, as far as any advice I have for ERAS and application, I guess the most important thing is to just realize it will be okay. I think that it's a very stressful process. Everything about it is stressful, from thinking about who you're going to ask for letters, wondering if, how do you do it? Do you write an email? Do you talk to someone in person? Do you, what should you include on your CV when they ask you for a letter? How do you deal with the person who says, okay, draft me something? All the way to knowing, whether you should submit, an exam score, such as like a step 1, step 2, or, whether you've taken it. And when I was applying, things were a little bit different. I think that some of these exams have changed, but I remember just being in a constant state of angst. And I think would have been nice if someone just said, just follow the process, things will be fine. I would say for specific things, when you're ERAS, one important thing is to make sure that everything on your application is something that you can talk about fully and confidently, whether it's a extracurricular activity that you did during medical school, whether it's a job you had, whether it's research that you did. Even if basically if you include it in your application, in your CV, just be ready to talk about it during your interviews. As far as when you interview, I'm not sure what the format of this year will be, but I'm happy to address some questions, any questions about what I think could be helpful to consider during the interview process. But I would say my main takeaways are, wishing that I was maybe a little bit less stressed about the whole process, and just knowing that regardless of how much stress you have, things just tend to work out okay at the end.
Thank you so much for that, Aki. I wanted to ask you, Richard, about any thoughts that you had about the personal statement.
Absolutely. I really love this question because the personal statement is the favorite part of the application. It's my favorite part. And the reason is because I believe the personal statement is kind of the element in the application that glues everything else together. You give a perspective of yourself to the program, like they get to know you in a more personal way, still by written. That is really important. So make sure it is in congruency with the rest of your application, and be mindful at the same time that it is not a CV. The rest of the application is kind of like a templated CV, but in the personal statement, you have to put your own flavor. They need to get to know you and think, oh my God, I want to know this person. I really want to interview them and get to see what they're thinking. And, so that's really, really important. So it gives you the freedom to shine in a written way and to show your passion about the field. So make sure you do that. Something important is to make sure that you address some what they call red flags. And I don't like calling them red flags because sometimes they just mean that you come from a diverse background and you didn't have the privilege. For example, I am an IMG, so I came from the Dominican Republic, and I graduated from med school when I was 21 years old in 2012, and then I did my PhD. So there was like a huge gap in my clinical practice. And that was something I needed to address in my personal statement to make sure they understand that. If there's any issues about scores or grades, make sure you take the time to explain those. Give yourself the opportunity to be human, being vulnerable if you have to. And particularly in psychiatry, I'm a little biased. We like that. We like when you appeal to the pathos, to the feelings of the reader, and make sure you catch the reader's attention. I know programs that first review the personal statement so they don't get biased with scores and things like that. And before submitting, if you're giving some love to specific programs, for example, I applied to like 50 programs, but there were 10, sorry, I have a timer here to make sure that I didn't go over, but just like a last thought, if you have a specific programs, I have like 10 programs that I really wanted to address specifically in the statement. Make sure that before you hit the submit button, you're submitting the right statement, and don't, keep it updated and avoid cliches like, oh, I'm going to change the field. If you're going to change the field, explain how you're going to do it and give specific examples. There was something I mentioned in my personal statement that was brought up in all of my interviews, and it was like I was a little flirtatious with programs at the end of my statement. I said something like, yeah, I'm going to do all this and change this and do this, but are you going to do this with me? Like, are we going to do it together? And like, they all rubbed that out, like, oh my God, we love that, because it was like a personal coach. So yeah, be yourself in a way that is respectful and that shows your capacity and your vulnerability if possible.
That was beautiful. I don't think I could say it any better. Thank you so much, Richard, for that. It's like, it's stressful right before you submit ERAS, and then after you submit it, then, you're getting interviews, and then you're getting to a point when you're learning how to make a decision for yourself. And so, Christine, I just wanted to ask you about like what an applicant should be looking for in a residency program, and what were you looking for in a residency program?
So I think when you apply, you should encourage yourself to apply broadly, because you never know what you're going to find as you're going through the interview process. But then once you start interviewing, I think it's very, very important to be honest with yourself about what it is exactly you're looking for out of training. I think whatever field you go into, you will see that the vast majority of programs are quite similar in terms of what residents are going to learn. But you will see that there are pretty important differences in terms of the resources that they offer you, not only in terms of education, but also things happen during residency, people have babies during residency, family emergencies happen, and I think it's important to find a program that is flexible with their residents, and it's like another sign of support for their residents. So, and you can be honest and ask those questions when you're interviewing. So resources available to their residents is very important. I also think that you should be discerning in how you watch residents interact with one another. For me, I really wanted to go to a program where people were not only friends with one another, but very supportive of each other, because you spend a lot of time with your co-residents, more time with them than you do with your spouse, with your significant other, with your family, and they end up becoming very important parts of your lives during those 3 to 5 years that you're in training. And so for me, I really wanted to be at a program where people knew each other very deeply and enjoyed spending time with one another. And then within that, I think you should also watch how residents interact with faculty. And that, I think, is one of the most important things, because mentorship is key in residency. When you're done with residency, you either go off and get a job, or you end up doing subspecialty training, and you need to have access to mentors and faculty that are genuinely interested in you and your future career. And I think that you can see that in some way as you're interviewing, in terms of how residents speak with faculty, how faculty know each resident on an individual level. And then you can sort of ask residents how it is that they figured out what they wanted to do after residency. Did they just sort of fall into a job, or just figure out like, oh, I guess I'll apply into this fellowship? Or did they actually do a lot of work with faculty mentors to get to a spot where they're successful and happy at the end of the day? So I think those are the 3 big things that you should look for, because ultimately at the end of the day, I think you're going to learn the same things, but it's about how your overall experience will be as you're training. That's most important.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine, for that. When you were deciding on which programs to apply to, Daniela, like how did you make your list to initially apply in ERAS?
Yeah, for me, a big factor of where I wanted to go to was location. I prioritized making sure that I could be with my partner in whatever city. My partner's not in medicine, so I only applied to places that I think like you just have to decide like what your priorities are. Like for me, it was staying with my partner in a city that he could also thrive in. So Boston, and like mostly we kind of like picked very few cities, and those are the only cities in which I applied, but it can be different for everyone. Like if your priority is being close to family, then maybe you just see what options are available in those settings. If your priority is really getting to do this very subspecialized thing that it's only offered in a few places, then that can be one of your priorities. I think you just need to decide really what your priorities are and kind of start narrowing that way. And the other thing for me, in OBGYN, like abortion training to me was crucial. So there's difference like within residencies. I only know the OBGYN portion because I'm biased and that's what I am doing. But there are Ryan programs in which part of the residencies, part of their curriculum is to be able to provide comprehensive abortion training. And I'm sure that's kind of the case for many different things. So just really make sure that not only are you narrowing by XYZ, but also like narrowing by the things that you must achieve in order to get you to the next step of where you see yourself being.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so important. Location. One of our program directors at BCRP says gut and location are generally the most important decision factors for people selecting a program. Now, it's really hard to know about location if you can't even go there. And so, Ramon, could you just speak to like how an applicant can kind of get to know a program without having a chance to visit?
Yeah, so that's challenging. just because like now, we're in a string of atypical like interview seasons because of the pandemic. But there are certain things that you could do to get to know a program. So the things that, you can identify are, one, like just factual information, which will be presented during the interview day, like what kind of like call system there is, like, kind of like the nuts and bolts of a program that I think maybe like when, as has been alluded before, like may not play as huge of an impact as you might think when you're ranking, creating your rank list, at least speaking for myself. Then the other thing is like culture. So, we have like most programs, if not all, have like pre-interview dinners or pre-interview sort of events that happen either the day before your interview or the week of your interview, depending on how things are organized. So that's a chance for you to get to talk to residents who are like volunteering their time to give you more information about the program. What I would say is pick up on the nuances. So what Christine was saying earlier about like how do residents interact with each other, that is the perfect time to gauge that. It's virtual, but you can still get a sense of like, like how the interactions are, and if, like what the discussion points are and things like that. The other thing that you could do, and this is important no matter whether it's virtual or not, is to talk to individual residents. So reach out to the residents that you've talked to, that maybe you connected with, and just ask them about their candid experiences. And most, if not all, of the residents that you talk to, like they've all been in the same position as you and will be candid with you about their experiences in the program. And so I think like looking at those nuances is going to will at least help you be better informed of like getting a sense of the culture of the program, obviously getting factual information during the interview day, also reaching out to faculty members and their experiences, asking questions that are important to you as a trainee. So things that were important to me when I was interviewing were like, what kind of support exists for URIM residents? What initiatives are in place in order to help underrepresented residents, and what initiatives are in place for like faculty retention? How does the program aim to like keep residents? So all of those things can help you make a better decision outside of like physically like going to the program. It's not possible to do that, but just gathering information in that way, being observant during the interview, being observant during the pre-interview events, and literally just like talking to people, I think will give you a better sense of the program.
Great. Thank you so much. So we are having these amazing answers, and I feel like each question of these could be its own talk. And so we're leading into our last 10 minutes. So I just encourage all of our panelists to try and keep our answers succinct, just so we can get as many of the questions as possible. So we just heard beautifully from Christine, Danielle, Ramon about, how to select a program. And so now I want to just get to the interview process. And so like, what tips do you have, Brian, for how to shine during a virtual interview? And do you have any particular wisdom to share regarding that?
I luckily was able to still do in-person interviews my year. So I missed that whole COVID thing, but seeing the applicants last year be in the shoes that I was in the year prior, I felt like it's kind of an impossible ask. It's tough to gauge what a program's like through the computer. But I feel like at least the Department of Surgery did a good job of setting up like little virtual rooms where the residents were able to like talk to each other, and there were several residents in each room, and you kind of felt the camaraderie that was present within the department that way, by having multiple residents kind of joke around with each other, and also you get the sense of the culture and how amicable everyone is. I would say in order for an applicant to kind of shine through their interview, I would say, you know, definitely be prepared with some good questions. Make sure you do research about the program itself. I think, you know, we can always ask those general questions of like, what don't you like about your program and whatnot, but like it shows that you are actually interested in the program when you know something specific about them. Remember to smile during your interview, because I know it's like a tense and nerve-wracking process, but the more relaxed and smiley you are, I feel like the more you put the residents at ease, and they think, oh, I can work with that guy or, you know, person. Find connections among the residents. Like if the residents are talking about soccer or something and you're a former soccer player, that's a connection right there. You know, if you like to run and there's a running club, talk about that. And then I would say communicate with the program director. That's something that I did when I was applying, especially because I did the couples match. And that was an important thing to highlight in my application. And I was in constant communication with my program director, Dr. Tara Kent. And I think that, you know, served me well in the long run.
Amazing. Thank you for that. On a similar light, like Aki, do you have any additional wisdom about what someone can look for on an interview day virtually?
Yeah, to add on to what Brian said, I completely agree. I think our program, when COVID started and we had to go to virtual interviews last year, we had a number of different nights where there were basically socials or get-togethers over Zoom, and this preceded the interview dates. And this was also actually during the application cycle, so even before interviews were announced, so that prospective applicants could get a chance to speak with residents and learn a little bit more about the program. And I think that was very well received. And our program also went a step further by allowing, by essentially making a list of applicants and assigning or asking residents to volunteer to reach out to 2 or 3 applicants. And I, spoke with I think 3 or 4 of them over several days after the interview, and one of them before the interview. And those conversations were fantastic. And I spent 45 minutes on these conversations, just answering questions, asking questions. And it was a great way for those applicants to get to learn something about the program and why I like it, and get a little bit more perspective from me. And one thing I will add, I know Brian, you've talked about many great things, is when you're seeking out residents to speak with, it can sometimes help to speak with junior residents who might not have as much, of a say in the application process. And I always told applicants, hey, at the time, I'm a junior resident, anything you tell me is just between me and you, and I'm here to just answer questions for you. And so take advantage of junior residents and interns, because in general, it's less scary, I would imagine, as an applicant to speak with them than to speak with maybe someone who's more senior.
Right, it's true. And once again, though, anybody you talk to could feed it back to program directors, so be wise about what you talk about. So now the next question, I want to talk about just the angst about, do I send post-interview communication? And so Richard, can you just shed some light on your perspective on this?
Absolutely. So the first question you have to ask yourself is that correct? Is it legal? Is it fine? And the answer is yes, but you always have to abide through the NRMP match contract. It is a contract, and there is a specific section, section 6, that talks about the duty to act in a professional and ethical manner, and it talks about restrictions in persuasion. Both applicants and programs may express their interest in each other. However, they shall not solicit verbal or written statements implying any commitment. So that's important. Make sure, like Tolu said, what you tell the program director, what you tell the interviewers or the residents. But yeah, I did have post-interview communications. And who did I write to? I wrote to residents, interviewers, and the program directors. So you have to be wise about these, and at the same time be respectful and abide by the rules. You cannot solicit them to tell you if they're ranking you or if they're ranking you to match or anything like that. But you can send these so-called love letters at the end. I did send some of those. And I have to say that my response rate, I got like 90% of the people I wrote would write back to me. And that was really important at that time, particularly because I was interested in the research track. So you need to make sure you create connections. And we're human beings, and the human factor plays a really important role. If people are interviewing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they're likely going to meet. The leadership is likely going to meet on Friday to evaluate all the applicants that they interviewed throughout the week. And it is important to remind them that you like the program, and if you have any specific questions, so just be mindful about the things you're going to say. Never lie or say like, oh, I'm going to rank you really high. You're not going to do it. And there's a lot of data about these post-interview communications and the percentages in the PD and applicant surveys of NRMP. So just be wise and respectful of the rules, but you're always free to express your interest in a particular program. If you have follow-up questions, just go with it.
Great. And then, like, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the match list questions just because we can discuss those on like the panels when people come talk to you one-on-one, Christine and Daniela. And I was going to open up to the final advice from Ramon. Do you have anything that you wanted to share about what could be a typical of applying this season, and any wisdom that you have in general?
Yeah, so I guess to make this short and sweet, I think trusting your gut and your intuition is probably the best resource that you have. And if you get, like a feeling that maybe this isn't going to be a good fit, like it's okay to follow that feeling. The other thing is talk to people, be mindful of like what you ask, because people like may, like go back to like their leadership and sort of thing. And just be present and engaged, like have fun with this process. Remember that you are also interviewing these programs as much as they're interviewing you. So this is really like a fit. I mean, that's why it's called a match. So be sure to gather as much information as you need in order to make a decision. That's all I got. And remember that you're all brilliant and amazing. And the fact that you're here on a Saturday morning means that you are like committed and serious about like this process. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. And Brian, do you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, I think what Ramon said was perfect. I will say that something that worked for me and my partner before applying was making a list of the things that are important to each one of us, making that list before interview season, and then comparing notes and seeing what ranked at the top. Was it living in a metropolitan city, or was it fitting in with the residents, or was it being close to family? And once we had a serious discussion about those things, then we were able to kind of tailor our interview list, and basically that influenced our rank list. Mm-hmm. And coming to Boston was the perfect merger of all of the things that we held to be true for each one of us, and we're very happy to be here. I will say that I know COVID is putting a damper on like being able to experience these programs, but I will say that as someone who has visited many programs throughout the interview cycle, that there are many great programs out there. Like this is definitely, we may be biased and we're saying, oh yeah, this is the best one, but there are great ones out there too. So I think wherever you end up, you get great training, and just try to be yourself on the interview trail and have fun, and be cognizant of your body language as well in the camera, because you can tell a lot from applicants by just seeing how they are behaving. But yeah, good luck, everyone. I wish you all the best.
All right. Wow, what a great group. Honestly, we should all hang out sometime, guys, in real life. It was such a pleasure to meet you all and to moderate this panel. And I'm going to just throw it back to Dr. Landry to continue the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolu, for moderating that wonderful panel. And thank you to all the residents for just sharing your stories, sharing your experiences, sharing your advice, and taking time on your Saturday mornings, whether you were in the hospital or at home, even getting up and getting dressed with making sure your lighting is right to be here. You didn't have to do this, but you did, and we truly appreciate your presence here. And I know that the medical students who are watching this see you all as examples. And I know our hospitals truly appreciate your participation in this space and see you as the future leaders that you are. So thank you for being here, and please enjoy the rest of your Saturday. We're going to pivot to another very important part of the program. I'm watching the chat happening, and I'm seeing the questions coming in from the audience, and there's so many questions about the application process, and I can see that that you students have questions that are perfectly targeted for our program directors panel. And so we're going to move to this portion of the discussion, and please keep the questions coming. We're trying to answer as many of those as possible. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rachel Stark, who will be moderating the program director panel. Dr. Stark is a practicing general internist, and she's the director of the residency program for internal medicine at Cambridge Health Alliance. And she's also an instructor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. And just as a personal note, Dr. Stark has been a friend of the VCP, a friend of the DICP, and just a wonderful colleague to work with over the past few years. And it's a pleasure to see Dr. Stark here in this space, moderating this panel. I think this is your second or third year doing this, so thank you again for being back and leading this discussion. Toss it over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Landry. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. This is one of my favorite events, both in person and second year in a row online, and hopefully we'll be back in person next year, but delighted to be here. I'm just going to say briefly to the students who are here, we want to learn about you and meet you, and we're excited to meet you. You are the future of our programs and our institutions. So I know it feels really scary to be on sort of the side of the application cycle that you're on, but for us, we're truly excited and want to try to calm those nerves as much as possible. We have a lot of ground to cover, lots of questions to cover, and as usual, these sessions go by quicker than we'd like them to. So we'll not miss a beat, and I think I will ask each of the program directors here in attendance to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right in. So could we start with Dr. Gangadharan?
Yes, hi. Welcome, everybody. Really happy to be here, so thank you for the invitation. I'm Sadhu Gangadharan. I'm a general thoracic surgeon. I'm the program director of the cardiothoracic surgery residency at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and I'm an assistant program director for the general surgery program. From the cardiothoracic perspective, there are integrated programs that medical students can apply directly into, as I think many of you know. Ours is a traditional fellowship that you apply into after completing general surgery. You apply during your fourth year, but I'm happy to answer questions for either general surgery or cardiothoracic surgery.
Thanks so much. Dr. Romanelli.
Thank you and welcome everyone. I'm Don Romanelli. I'm the program director for the diagnostic radiology residency at Mount Auburn Hospital. And it's really an honor for me to represent Mount Auburn, a place that I've been working at for 10 years and I really love and cherish. Hopefully we'll be able to share some things with you to help you through this process. And I hope all of you will take a look at Mount Auburn. It's a really unique and wonderful place to work and train.
And Dr. Sadawi Kanefka.
Hi, I'm Dan Sadawi Kanefka. I go by Dan. Please, everyone, just call me Dan. It's a lot easier. Although you did amazing, Dr. Stark. That is exactly how you say my name. I'm the program director for the anesthesia residency at MGH. I've been doing this for, I guess, a little over maybe 4.5 years now. Originally from the Midwest, came out here in 2010 for training and have continued to stick around. It's a wonderful place. I look forward to getting to know you guys and hopefully having some good discussion today.
Thanks so much. Dr. Sektish.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Ted Sektish. I'm the program director at Boston Children's of the Boston Combined Residency Program. We have another program director at Boston Medical Center, Kate Michelson, who's going to be on the 1 o'clock hour. We have a very interesting program in that we merged 2 residency programs a long time ago. I was here for my training, went off to California, both in practice and at Stanford as the program director, and came back here 14 years ago. And it's a very innovative place. We hope you'll check us out. One thing I want to reassure all of you about is that the virtual interview season last year really worked. And so don't be apprehensive about it. You can really tell everybody who you are through the virtual medium of Zoom or whatever other platform, and it really will give you an insight into programs.
And Dr. Stagg.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Stagg. I'm the residency program director for the integrated Brigham and Women's Hospital and Mass General Hospital OBGYN residency program. I have been working in this residency program first as the associate program director and then the program director for the last 3 years. I trained in New York and at Georgetown in DC, and then have been in clinical practice at Mass General for 14 years. And now also clinical practice at Brigham, as well as I'm the program director for both sites.
Okay, thanks everybody. So the students can tell we have a broad group here representing multiple hospitals, multiple areas of specialty, lots of information, lots of folks here who have lots of advice to share. So we're gonna get right into it. And because we have lots of questions for the students today, I'm gonna ask the panelists to try to keep things brief when possible so we can get all the way to the end. We'll start with Dan, because you told me I can call you Dan. Tell us how you are preparing for this application season, recognizing we're the 2nd year into virtual interviews. Are there things that you are doing specifically this year?
Sure. It's actually sort of as some of the other panelists were mentioning, this isn't the first go around of this way of doing it. I think most programs were trying to get a lot of information out on our websites because the in-person visits are going to be a little bit curtailed. We're, assembled our recruitment panels that has residents and has faculty, picking our interview days. It actually, I mean, I know this seems like, oh, it should be so different than a normal year, but a lot of things are actually very much like the normal way, just looking at the dates that we have and sort of making plans along the way. That's kind of the thrust of, big picture. On a smaller scale, putting together sort of what the virtual offerings might be in terms of open houses, in terms of connecting applicants with with residents. So there's some of those little things, planning, the thank you letters we send out and those sort of things, the details that might be slightly different than normal year when we see you in person. But it actually feels relatively like a normal year.
Yeah, there was a lot of heavy lifting for programs and program directors last year in anticipation of a pivot to virtual interviewing, and now we're sort of all a little used to it. So thanks for that. Dr. Stagg, what are you anticipating in terms of numbers of applications this year?
Yeah, so as we've all been saying, because we did this last year, I wondered last year if we were going to get a different amount of applicants. And what I've seen just over the last several years is a steady increase in applicants because OBGYN is such a wonderful specialty. And I didn't see a big change in applicant last year with the virtual interviews, a steady increase as we have been doing. But what we're really looking to do and what we feel that virtual interviewing is helping with is really to get applicants from everywhere in different types of medical schools and really just diversify the people that are applying to our program. So we've done a lot to just try to make it a welcoming type of application process. So we hope to continue that.
Thanks. And Dr. Sektosh, any advice to students about what's the right number of programs to apply to? That's always a question.
Well, that very much depends on specialty, that's for sure. In pediatrics, the majority of applicants, US applicants, get their first choice. So it's not as competitive as some of the other specialties. So I recommend students look at about 8 to 12 programs, but I'm sure that if you're looking at orthopedics or radiation oncology, the surgical subspecialties, they're probably in the 40 to 50 to 60 range. I think this is where you really do need good advice from the dean's office, the people who are mentoring you through this process. And especially if you're in a couples match where you're thinking about how to geographically strategize your rank list so that you can optimize the best program for both of you is really going to require some advice through faculty mentoring.
Thanks. And I think we'll turn a little bit to talking about holistic review of applications. So Dr. Romanelli, I just wanted to ask you, given the timelines for this year's application review and virtual reviewing, is there anything that you're going to be doing differently in your review process?
Yes, so in the past, we would receive the ARIS application without the MSPE around this time of year, about mid-September, and we would have, I think, around 3 weeks before the MSPE came out. And so what we would do was review each application and do sort of a preliminary sort, make notes. And then when the MSPE came out, we would go over each application again with a focus on the MSPE, but also being able to look back at our notes and look back at little things about each applicant, and then finally put our list together and send out invites for interviews. This year, everything is coming out together on September 29th. And so we lose a couple of weeks from the mid-September to the end of September, and we don't have the opportunity, or at least I don't think we'll have the opportunity to go over everything twice. So our plan is to review every application once in great detail with the MSPE. We're going to involve a few more people in that process to try to speed it up. And then we're going to move back the start of interviews a little bit. We used to start in mid-October. We're going to start toward the end of October, beginning of November, so to give ourselves a little more time. And then I'll say this, I, as the program director, I've always gone over just about every application myself on top of what other people have done. And the secret is I'm still going to do that, although I'm telling my faculty that I'm not. At least I'm going to try if I can do it. So I guess it's not that big of a secret since there's hundreds of people watching and this is being recorded, but I'm going to try to still do that. But it is, I think, overall a slight negative because we have a little less time to do what we've always done.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we're all feeling a little bit of the crunch. Dr. Stagg, can you tell us a little bit about your program's particular approach to holistic review of applications?
Yeah, and that's great. And it looks like one of the attendees also asked that question specifically for OBGYN. So we've been doing this for quite some time, a holistic review, and honing it each year. We have a committee of reviewers, and first of all, just making sure our committee represents in terms of our residency, our faculty, our residency program manager. And then the holistic review really is that we have a nice form that we use where we're really looking at all aspects of our applicants and using that form to review our applications, but also having enough people on our panel in our committee to review where we're all using sort of some of the same criteria. The idea of a holistic review is that there isn't one thing like a step score or a grade that's going to keep somebody from getting an interview. It's really looking at all aspects of their application, specifically with our own values of our residency program, and just seeing what kind of match there is between the applicant and the things that we value. And then we get together as a committee and make these decisions. And so having all of the information, including that dean's letter, is very helpful in this process.
Thanks so much. Dr. Gangadaran, the next one is for you, and I feel like it's a tough one. So as you are probably aware, and I know many of the students are aware, this year there's a little bit of a change where internal medicine, dermatology, and general surgery residencies will use the new ERIS supplemental application. So what are your thoughts about how programs are going to approach the new supplemental application process and use it in addition to the traditional ERIS application?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you asked me that question 3 weeks ago, which I think Dr. Landry actually asked me that question, and I said, I have no idea how it's going to be used. I have a little bit more of an idea of how it might be used now. And I think it ties into the prior discussions around holistic review, which we, like a lot of places, have implemented and codified. So our sort of scoring system for our applications weights things differently than I think traditionally had been. So board scores, for example, they get weighted a certain way, but they're not disproportionately weighted. And I think with pass fail, they'll be weighted even less than they had been, say, 20 years ago. But things like leadership or community engagement or commitment to DEI activities, those things have a lot of weighting. And having had the opportunity to look at some of the supplemental answers, just as a favor to students who have asked me to do so, I think it's going to be great, because that is where those activities can really shine. And you can speak about what you've done, about your passions in those activities. And hopefully programs that are paying attention to that will seriously consider the information in the supplemental. The nice thing is it's not asking you to write pages and pages and pages about the activities. It's really just putting it in a nutshell and saying, what was it about what you did that is important and really informs who you will be as a practicing physician or surgeon.
Thanks. I also think, the truth is the supplemental is new this year for the programs as well. So we're going to be learning just like you're learning. And also I think important that it's set up and structured such that it's really in the benefit of the students and not really to the benefit, it's not leaning towards the benefit of the programs. It's really set up so that the students can highlight pieces of their application that are important to show us. So just want to reassure folks about the use of the supplemental, and we're going to figure it out as we go along, which we're getting used to doing with all these changes from year to year. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about applications. So Dr. Sadawi Kanefka, could you tell us, how does your program use the MSPE as part of application review?
Great. So the med student performance reports that we get from the med schools, we actually look at those quite in depth. There are a couple different components. Sometimes there's a comparative component where there's the honors, the high pass, or whatever it is that a particular school uses, and that can be useful. But to be honest, it's often clouded by test scores and other things that maybe the highest test score doesn't necessarily make for the best physician. So I'd say that's a fairly limited use, especially because at some programs it's 10% get honors, other programs it's 90% get honors. So for us here, it's a little bit less about that and more of a holistic look at the comments, which takes a good amount of time. But I'll tell you one of the things that we look at in terms of comments. So I think it's generally the case that people are nice and they want to say nice things about the med students and highlight all of the strengths. And so they'll talk about, medical knowledge. There'll be comments about patient care. There'll be comments about team play and communication, interpersonal skills. And what we actually kind of look for is not only what's said, but maybe what's not said. So for example, if we read across all rotations, there are lots of great comments about patient care and owning the patient and making good decisions, but not once is team play or interpersonal skills or communication mentioned. That gives us sort of a a question mark. Why isn't that mentioned? Is it just the patient care is so good that that's just what really shines through, or is there a potential absence? So we'll look at the letters of recommendation to see if maybe we can fill in those gaps. But that's kind of how we look at the MSPs. I suspect it's not too dissimilar across programs. The tough part is that it makes for a lot of time spent going through the MSPs, and sometimes can make it so that as we go through everyone, it takes longer to send out interviews. But we think it probably makes for a better screening tool overall. And as things, I think, are sort of for many good reasons going away from scores and so forth, I think these types of qualitative analyses of application packets are going to become more and more common.
Thanks so much. Dr. Sektish, can you tell us, just in terms of timeline, what are the implications of a letter for a student that might come in later in the application season?
Well, we did a study that showed that the letters of recommendation were the highest correlate with the intern milestones at the end of the intern year. So if you got a really good letter from somebody who really knows you, it counts and it's important. So you can't always get faculty to produce the letter on your timeline. So you have somebody submitting a late letter, you need to flag that. So I would have students write to the coordinator and copy the program director or the intern selection chair and let them know that a new letter just popped up in ARIS, because they don't usually download the letters until right before the interview day. So you want to make sure that that's included in the packet. The other thing is that sometimes students are doing visiting rotations or sub-internships in the fall, right in the midst of the interview season. Those need to be included as well, because they show the most fresh look at that student's clinical performance. So I think alerting the program is a necessary step to make sure that it gets included in the packet for review.
Yeah, I think excellent advice. I'll dovetail on that and say that the way that ARIS works on the program director side, we don't get notifications that new things are in there. It doesn't work that way. So if students don't know that, it's really good advice to send the program office or send the program director, depending on what the contact system is at any particular program, a heads up that more information is coming in, or a new sub-I grade or a letter, because we won't necessarily go back to ARIS to look for it, because we won't know that anything new is there. So excellent advice. We'll pivot now maybe to talk about personal statements. And Dr. Romanelli, this is the season, this is the set of weeks in which students are really putting their final touches on personal statements before submitting their application. So what advice do you have for putting together the best personal statement possible?
Yes, this is a great question, and I can probably talk way too long about this, so please cut me off, Rachel, if I go too long. But and the resident panel, that was a great discussion, and I'll try not to repeat what they said. I just to highlight a little bit, I think it's important to take that opportunity to really think about what you want to highlight to the committees that are reviewing your application, what makes you special, why we want to work with you, and really make us excited about meeting you. And that was discussed really well. I think I'll shift a little to the program director perspective, and I'll say a couple of things. I find when we read personal statements, it's better to use very personal specific examples than sort of generalizations. So if you're going to say, I'm a hard worker and I'm dependable and all those things, that's great, and it's probably true, but it's better to show an example of something that you did. I spent 200 hours in volunteering over the last 3 years in this clinic, and achieve this result. That tells me that you're a hard worker and you're reliable and you're dedicated, but it also highlights something specific about you that you did. There was a little talk about red flags on your application, and I do think this is a place to address that if you have specific red flags. And what I think of as red flags are things that are going to take you from the sort of yes interview pile to the maybe pile. You don't want to leave a question in the program's minds. What happened in the first year? They failed biochemistry, or what happened on that test score, or those type of things. Those are things that are pretty obvious that will stand out, and you want to take the opportunity to address them, talk about what you learned from it, how you fixed it in the future, how you're going forward with it. Be a little careful about this. You don't want to make a red flag out of something that's not a red flag. So if you have the opportunity to get advice from somebody, is this really something I need to address? I think I would use that person as an advisor. And then I'll say a little bit, I think that it's just in general, a word of warning. I remember more of the bad personal statements than the good ones. And I think it's likely that more people are moved down by a bad personal statement than are moved up by a good one. And so be careful about a few specific errors. The mechanics of the application are important. Proofread it more than once. You don't want any typos. You don't want any grammatical errors. If you read it out loud, I think sometimes that changes it, the way you think about it, and you might fix some of those things. Have somebody else read it and listen to what they say. A lot of times when you've read it over and over again, you're going to miss a mistake that someone else will pick up. And then finally, and what I mean by that, all those things tell the programs about your attention to detail, right? So if you have these typos or mistakes in there, it's going to tell us you don't focus, you don't have attention to detail. It's a red flag. And finally, I'd say be really careful with humor in your personal statement. I would actually try to avoid it. I don't know if I have time to tell a quick story, but I had one applicant, I'm a radiologist, I had an applicant tell a story in the personal statement about they were on surgery and they were up all night and they were holding a retractor in the OR and they were bored and their feet hurt and their back hurt. And then the patient had to go to radiology and the radiologist was there and he was sitting in a chair and he was drinking coffee and his feet didn't hurt and his back didn't hurt. And I thought, hey, I'm going to go into radiology. That's funny. I mean, I get it. That's funny. But what it told us as a committee is that this person thinks about stereotypes of radiologists. This person maybe doesn't want to work hard. This person wasn't paying attention on their surgical rotation. I'm an interventional radiologist. I'm up all night, not infrequently doing cases. So it's actually comes across slightly insulting. So just be really careful about humor. So I guess to sum it up, I would highlight all your accomplishments, be careful about the mechanics, use it to explain red flags if you have to, and be yourself, but be your best self, your most professional self.
Thank you so much. Lots of rich advice there. We're going to turn to interviews now, interview season. So Dr. Stagg, how are you preparing your interviewers, faculty and others, for virtual interviews? And do you think that there's more opportunities in terms of the way interviews will happen now that they're going to be, well, another year of virtual interviews?
Yeah. So we do a lot of when we did in-person interviews, we also did a lot of preparation with our faculty, and our PGY3 residents are our resident interviewers, our whole class interviews. So we have that representation. So we are going to do a bit of what we did last year and it's similar, but also make some tweaks from what we learned. So we did sessions with our faculty and our residents where they could sort of like do a little practice getting on Zoom sessions and interviewing. We gave them all the tips and tricks, which we also give our interviewees about sort of like how to set yourself up for success in terms of some of the mechanics of virtual interviewing in terms of the Wi-Fi, in terms of your background and all that different stuff. But the other thing we really do is we really each year need to remind our faculty and teach our residents how to do that holistic review, how to look at applicants, what are biases that can come up and how do you manage that? So we do unconscious bias training. We had with our faculty and our resident interviews, we had a session where we really kind of learned about that and how that some of those biases can come up when we interview and how to mitigate those. So there's a lot that really goes into, you know, kind of each year doing our training for our faculty, and the residents are new to it each year. So we need to kind of bring them all together just to really do that. And so some of those sessions are individual, just making sure the technology is working and people have time to practice. And some of those are group sessions that we do for training. And then the other question you were saying are kind of like, what are the opportunities? And I think it's just, you know, we really, we were sort of doing it for the first time last year. So this time I just feel like there's a lot of fun things that we did and tried. And we actually did a survey of our current interns to learn all about their experiences with virtual interviews and like what worked and what didn't work, and got all of their feedback about what are the things that they felt really worked with the virtual interviews, plus sort of some of those social or meet and greet type of things that are all virtual. So gathering information, getting ready.
Thanks so much. I also think one of the great benefits of virtual interviewing is geography for both the students, but also for the faculty. So faculty who might be at, in clinic or in a specific place where it would have been hard for them to be in person doing interviews on an interview day can kind of log in and have a 30-minute chat with a student, and a lot more opportunity to involve lots of different faculty from across all of our institutions. So there are lots of benefits to virtual interviews.
Yeah, we really experienced that too. We had a lot more participation easily from our faculty, which was great.
Dr. Nagadaran, going to you. So what do you think are the special considerations for students as they prepare for virtual interviewing?
I think first and foremost, just take a breath, relax, and realize that those virtual interviews are going to be conducted by faculty, many of whom don't even have, they don't even know how to put their email like on their computer, right? So however technically challenged you might feel you are, you're going to be dealing with people that are far worse. So, I think when you set up your room, your interview space, whatever it is, ideally you have lighting, you're not in the dark, but I wouldn't get too crazy about it. Things happen. Like I often will be in this room, I'm at home right now, with patients doing video visits, and the dog will come in, or a kid will knock on the door, or the doorbell rings. There's just going to be those interruptions. When a lot of people in this household, I had 3 people on remote, school for periods of time last year. And so the Wi-Fi would get really bad and glitchy. But, in a way, it's an opportunity to show that you're resilient, that you have a workaround. If your Wi-Fi cuts out and that interview gets curtailed, maybe there's a phone number. You can talk to the coordinator and sort of just keep trucking. And then the other thing that I would say, other than the cosmetic appearance and sort of just being calm with it, which everybody's got a lot of experience with Zoom now, so that should be a little bit easier this round. The other thing I would say is that every touch that you have with a program becomes a little bit more important. So when you're in in-person interview, the way you treat the people at the front desk, the way you treat the security guard, whether you hold the door, you let it slam on the person behind you, all of those things actually get subtly perceived by the people in the program. When it's virtual, you have many less opportunities to demonstrate those same kindnesses and the same things that tell us this is a person that we know will treat patients well, or colleagues or staff. And so all those opportunities, make the most of them. Whether it's in a group session, an open house session when you're there with the residents, or an open forum for questions, or whether it's simply the interactions that you have with the people that are arranging the interview date for you. Just keep that in mind. All those things are being monitored to some extent.
Thank you. Those are all incredibly helpful pieces of advice. And also remembering that we're all human too. We have dogs and kids and glitchy Wi-Fi also. So everybody gets through it. Dr. Sadawi-Kanefka, can you tell us a little bit about opportunities? How are students going to get to know trainees if traditional things like nights out for dinner and lunches with residents and tours of the hospital are not going to happen in virtual interview season?
A really, really great question. And maybe I'll start off with sort of just a try to calm fears. There's been a whole year of folks who have done this before you with probably less thought out ways to connect with residents and so forth. We've all had another year to think about how we're going to do this. And the match worked well. I think if you talk to interns across specialties, what I would do is say, was there anything surprising between when you interviewed virtually and when you came here? I think that'd be a really good question to ask. But at least informally through the focus groups we've had with our interns, no surprises. If anything, they're just happy that things were exactly as they thought they would be virtually. That is said, so what our program's offering? So I think most of a lot of places, instead of the dinners beforehand, will have sort of virtual happy hours or whatever it is that they call them with different residents. A lot of programs also will have open houses, so keep your eyes out for that. That may not be something that they do pre-interviews, but maybe for the folks who are interviewing with them. And then ask to connect with residents in that program, particularly if there are shared backgrounds, you come from similar regions, whatever it is, to see what's the transition like, what are the things that maybe I'm not anticipating that or thinking about that I ought to be thinking about. But again, just to wrap up the same way I started, I wouldn't actually worry about it too much. It seems, at least from our history this first year, that we are able to express culture and get a sense of fit virtually. So don't have much fear around that, and talk to the interns, because they were in your shoes just a year ago.
Thanks so much. And speaking with my own interns of my own program, it was remarkable how much they were able to identify culture and have a feeling and a gut instinct from program to program, even though all of the programs were doing virtual interviews and these kinds of electronic gatherings. So rest assured, it does come through, even if different than years past. So Dr. Stagg, what is your advice to students if they don't get an interview offer at a program that they're very interested in?
Yeah, my advice is to go back to your mentor, the person who is helping you with this process, and ask them, what they kind of go through, how important this particular interview is, and what is their advice, because it's a little bit specialty specific, I would say. For us, what I would say for OBGYN would be to, again, connect with that mentor, whoever's mentoring you through the process of application, and ask them to send a message to the program. It may, in our field, it's pretty hard to make that change because we have these national interview release dates. And once that release date is done, we aren't really allowed to offer more interviews because they're trying to make it a fair and transparent process. But there are 2 interview release dates. So, know those dates for us at least. And then a message from, the person who is really mentoring, but I would save that message. I wouldn't just, send it to a bunch of programs, just really kind of think about how important that interview is. And if it's very, very important, use your message for that one.
Thank you. So we have just a few minutes left, so I want to try to race through the next couple questions. Dr. Sektish, lots of students are told to write thank you letters to programs after their interview. So is that something that you recommend as a program director?
I think you have to be yourself, and I think you have to be very honest. I think it's a way to be cordial. It's a way to specifically cite what really excited you about that program, maybe an interaction with a resident or an interviewer. It's a way to open up communication with whoever's you're communicating with. Not to do anything that's not according to the match rules, but a way to kind of further promote yourself and to find out a little bit more about the program. It may be that you harmonize or connect with somebody, and then they become your advocate at the intern selection committee level. So I think you have to do it if you feel comfortable doing it, and if it is a genuine outreach to that program.
And Dr. Romanelli, we get this question a lot, so I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. So lots of students express their interest in programs after the interview process by sending, or right before the rank list, by sending a "you're our #1 program" kind of message. So can you tell us how that is viewed by program directors?
So most program directors, if you ask them publicly, will say it doesn't influence them at all. And I think that's largely true, but not entirely true. And what I mean by that is, we all want to be liked, and we all want our programs to be the best. And it's flattering to hear that our program is your number one choice. And we want residents who are really excited to be in our program. So I think if you have a clear number one, I would tell the program. And the time to do that is after the interviews are all over and prior to the rank list go out, so that we know that you're making that decision after you've looked at everyone else. It's crucial that you're truthful about this. Only tell one program that they're your number one. If you tell 2 or 3 programs that they're number one and they rank you to match and you don't end up there, you just wrecked your professional reputation, and it's a much smaller world than you think. So be careful with it, but I would use it if you have a clear number one. I don't think you have anything to lose as long as you're truthful.
I think we have time for one last question. So I'm going to skip ahead and Dr. Sadawi-Knefka, I'm just going to ask you any other advice for applicants as we finish up this session. There's a lot of rich discussion here, so I wonder if you have anything to cap it off.
Yeah, two tips. One, don't worry. Like, you will get through this. We all get through this. You will be absolutely fine. I promise you. I know I say don't worry. I know you're going to worry, but like, just know that you will get through it, even if the worry is coming now. And two, just for the application season, and then just in life, take some time every now and then to just pause and reflect. Like, what is it that you want to do? Like, who is it that you want to be? Are you on the path that feels fulfilling to you? And I think one of the things that you'll find as you do that, if you say, okay, well, here's where I am now, here's what I see in a fulfilling career 5-10 years down the road. What you can then do is identify, all right, to get from here to there, what do I need? Like, I got a path to walk, but what are the resources that are going to help me walk that path? And when you do that, you'll be able to, I think, better understand what it is that you need out of a program. So my suggestion would be, do that at least once or twice. Talk it over with mentors before you interview. That way, when you go on the interviews, the questions you ask, they're not generic. They're related to exactly what the resources are that you need to get where you want to go. Well, that's my suggestion. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was such a delight to be here with this entire panel. We wish you lots of luck to all the students, whatever area of specialty and entering this year's application process. And I'm going to hand things back over to Dr. Landry.
I just want to say again, thank you to our program directors. I was in the background listening into this wonderful advice, and it's great to hear your ability to humanize this experience that our students are about to go through as they become trainees. We're stressed about this application season as students, but you all really help to personalize this and help us to think about the residency programs in general, and then also about the Harvard affiliated residency programs. And hopefully the students listening in felt that and gained some insights for this application season. So I want to say thank you to Dr. Stark and to the rest of the panelists for taking time on your Saturday morning to be here with us and to share your words of wisdom. Thank you again. All right, I'm just going to give everyone a quick idea of how we're going to be going forward with the rest of the day. We know that we've been sitting in panel discussions for the past 2 hours, so we're going to take a little bit of a break and try and switch things up. We're going to explain to you how the next 2 hours or so of the event is going to go. Our residency program exhibits are up next. These exhibits give you a time to visit with each program, meet some leadership and faculty and trainees. We're going to have 2 30-minute sessions for the exhibit hour. A key is listed that's going to explain which programs are going to be hosting sessions for which specific times, whether it's 12 o'clock or 12:30. You will have access to through the emails that you received, also on the website, and it's also being posted in the chat. If you have any technical assistance needs, there will be a discussion chat that you can go into that we can help you with to get you to the right space. And then after the exhibit sessions, we're going to have these general breakout hours where you're going to be able to interface with trainees and just ask questions. And I think that's something that you all have really shown an interest in doing over the past 2 hours, looking through the discussions that we've seen. So go to the specialty specific place. You're going to hear from programs, whether it be trainees or junior faculty from across the Harvard institutions. It's going to be general advice for whatever you're applying to. If you have questions, that's a great place to get those answered. At 2 p.m. Eastern time, the discussions room will close, and that will be the end of the showcase. At that point, you don't need to check back in with anyone. That's going to be the end of the program. So our host for each of the breakout rooms is going to wish you all a goodbye and a good rest of your day. As we finish this up, I just want to give another thank you to a group of people who were really instrumental in us being able to pull together such a wonderful session. Obviously to Dr. Reed, who's been leading this space at Harvard Medical School and the DICP, and really as someone who's been a true North Star for us across the country as we talk about DEI efforts. And so thank you to Dr. Reed for being a supporter of the Residency Showcase. I want to say thank you to all the hospitals, specifically the leadership of the hospitals that welcomed us to start the program off, as well as the residents and the program directors who joined us for our sessions. And I also want to give a very special shout out to the DICP staff, specifically Jasmine Stechter, who's been an absolutely amazing resource and a great addition to the DICP team. Jasmine, thank you for doing all the behind the scene work for us to have such a successful program, and to all the other DICP staff that is joining us, and just to help to make sure we have a smooth program today. So we're going to take a break now. Be sure to click on the links that you have, go to the exhibit sessions with our various programs, and then also join us for the discussion sessions starting at 1 o'clock. I hope everyone has a good rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you on the interview trail, even though it will be virtual. And we look forward to also seeing you, finding out that great information, knowing that you matched at one of our amazing residency programs next March, and then seeing you in our hospitals as interns come next June and July. Thank you for joining us today, and everyone have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the program.